What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel.
No question for the most part, although there's not been an announcement at quarterback, but Jarrett Guarantano played reasonably well last year considering the circumstances. 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But of course, development at that position is crucial if you want to compete with the likes of Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, and the rest. Your thoughts about Guarantano in regards to what you saw late last season in development and how it projects forward?
To me, I think he's taken to Jim Chaney's offense particularly well. I think this is his fourth coordinator in his fourth year at Tennessee. I mean, it's a lot of adjustments year to year for him. But I think Chaney's offense is particularly friendly to quarterbacks, and he does a good job of kind of just taking the strengths of the team and running with it. And I think he's taken particularly well with that. To me, what's going to be determinant of whether or not JG and this offense has a good season is going to be that offensive line, because Guarantano would have had even a better season than what he did last year if the offensive line was better. I mean, you saw multiple games last year, pretty much every single game where multiple snaps in a game, he'd have 2, maybe 3 seconds to throw the ball before he gets hit. And then there was a lot of times he didn't take as many sacks as the numbers would suggest. That, looking at just watching the game and look at the numbers, you'd say he got sacked more than he did. That's because he would get rid of the ball and be hit as soon as he got rid of it. And time again, I mean, he took more hits than what the numbers are going to tell you he took. So I think this year, his growth and the offense's growth in general are going to really hinge on what the offensive line does, and they need to improve. You could argue them and Florida State were the 2 worst offensive lines in college football last year. This year, if they can even just be mediocre, I mean, if they can just be average, it'll be a big step forward than what they were last year. So I think that's going to be really the biggest determining factor in whether or not Guarantano takes another step is, can he get protection consistently?
It's like, Nathaniel, you need to bottle that Auburn game. I know Kentucky was the best team that you beat on paper, but they basically had a rock fight with everyone and gave everybody a chance to win. Just considering when you talk about the offensive line woes last year, and Auburn had one of the very best defensive fronts in the country. And I know that they weren't, this was not a vintage Auburn team, but they were still, despite their record, one of the 20 best teams in the country. And to win that game on the road and to look at Guarantano's numbers, 21-32, 308 through the air, no picks, 2 TDs. That was really a remarkable effort. And I remember watching other games, and then all of a sudden I had to tune to Tennessee and Auburn and see what was going on there.
Yeah, that was easily Guarantano's best game of his career. You could argue, even though the stats weren't quite as good for South Carolina, I thought that was a good game plan on offense for Tennessee in that one too. That the defense lost in that game. It wasn't the offense. But I think his 3 best games last year were Auburn, South Carolina, Kentucky, and those ones, Tennessee went 2-1 in those contests, and you could argue they should have won against South Carolina if they didn't make a mistake here and there on offense or defense. But I thought those were his 3 best games last season overall, when looking at actual, legit competition, not talking about the FCS schools or the low FBS schools, but talking about SEC and Power 5 competition. I thought those were his 3 best games. And in those games, he got better protection than the other ones. And that was as simple as it was. He got better protection in those games, and that's what helped him flourish and have a better thing. And also the Auburn game, they did a little bit more kind of 50-50 balls and thrown up to his receivers. And I think last year, Tennessee's receiving core was probably one of the more underrated receiving cores in the country. And I think this year they're going to be very, very good as long as, like I said, as long as the offensive line steps up and gives Guarantano time to get the ball to them. You have a lot of upperclassmen in Juwan Jennings, Marcus Callaway, Josh Palmer, Brandon Johnson there. You have a very good trio or kind of quartet of receivers, and you have some really good young guys coming in like Ramel Keaton, and you have Jordan Murphy, who's been there for another year and has got really good shiftiness and everything. So I think that what was the common thread in his best performances last year was the fact that Tennessee protected him better. It gave him an opportunity with play calling and protection both of utilizing his strengths as a quarterback.
And Callaway, certainly the marquee guy there in terms of name recognition for SEC fans and people across the nation, caught 37 last year at 16 yards per catch and a couple touchdowns.